Take a deep breath in, filling your lungs with the cool, clean air of a world that moved much slower than our own. And as you exhale, feel your body beginning to sink into the soft, welcoming weight of your bed. Have you ever wondered what the night felt like before the glow of electricity, when the only light came from the silver moon and the dying embers of a hearth? Imagine you are standing at the edge of a narrow, cobbled street in a small medieval town. The sun has long since dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky of deep, dusty violet. There is no rush here. No hum of engines. Only the profound velvet silence of a town preparing for rest. Notice the cool air settling on your forehead, a gentle, refreshing touch that signals the end of the day's labors and the beginning of a long, undisturbed peace. The atmosphere of the town is thick with the scent of wood smoke and dried herbs. As you stand in the shadows of an overhanging timber frame house, you can smell the faint, sweet aroma of toasted barley and the earthy richness of damp stone. The architecture here is a marvel of slow, deliberate craft. You run your hand along a sturdy oak beam, feeling the rough, honest grain of the wood. This house was built using the jettying technique, where the upper floors overhanging the street were supported by massive horizontal beams called bressemers. It creates a sense of being enclosed in a wooden canyon, a sanctuary of oak and wattle and daub that has stood for generations. The air is perfectly still, and the ground beneath your feet, a mixture of packed earth and smooth river stones, holds the last lingering warmth of the afternoon sun. Above you, the stars are beginning to pierce through the violet haze, appearing not as distant sparks, but as bright, steady lanterns guiding the world towards sleep. A short distance away, you see the town's night watchman beginning his final rounds. His movement is not a hurried patrol, but a slow, rhythmic stroll that has been performed every night for decades. He carries a small, pierced iron lantern that casts dancing patterns of light against the whitewashed walls of the cottages. You hear the steady rhythmic crunch, crunch of his heavy leather boots on the fine gravel of the marketplace. It is a grounding sound, a heartbeat for the sleeping town. He stops at a stone well in the center of the square, his gloved hand resting briefly on the cold iron crank. There is a methodical grace to his actions as he checks the heavy wooden shutters of the bakehouse, ensuring they are latched tight against the evening breeze. He isn't looking for trouble, for there is none to be found. He is merely a silent guardian, a shepherd of the dark, ensuring that the stillness remains unbroken. You watch as he moves further down the lane, the golden glow of his lantern shrinking until it is just a soft amber heartbeat in the distance, while the rhythmic sound of his footsteps fades into a gentle echo. The world is winding down now, curling into itself like a cat before a fire. In the windows of the nearby apothecary, the glass, thick and green like the surface of a forest pool, reflects the rising moon. Inside, the heavy ceramic jars of dried valerian and lavender sit in rows, their contents resting in the dark, waiting for the morning. The heavy shadows in the doorways are not cold. They are protective, like a thick wool cloak wrapped around the shoulders of the streets. You feel a sense of profound safety here, knowing that every hearth in the town has been dampened down, the coals buried under a layer of ash to keep the heat alive until dawn. This was the couvre-feu, the covering of the fire, a nightly ritual that brought a literal and metaphorical warmth to every household. The tension in your own muscles begins to mirror this dampening of the flames. The frantic energy of the day is being buried under a soft layer of quiet, leaving only a low, steady hum of contentment. As you prepare to follow the watchman's path into the deeper parts of the night, feel your limbs growing heavy, as if they were made of the same ancient oak that holds up these homes. The cobbles beneath you are soft in the moonlight, and the air is becoming a gentle weight, pressing you down into a state of total surrender. Every breath you take is synchronized with the slow, invisible pulse of the sleeping town. Your mind is clear, a blank parchment waiting for the ink of dreams. You are drifting now, moving away from the waking world and toward the soft, blurred edges of a history that only knows peace. Let go of the need to listen, let go of the need to know. Just exist here, in the indigo shadows of the Bessemer beams, and allow the rhythm of the night to carry you forward into the next quiet hall. The night air deepens, turning from a dusty violet to a rich, royal indigo that seems to wrap around the timber-framed houses like a heavy velvet blanket. As you move away from the marketplace, the ground beneath your feet transitions from the hard river stones to a softer, more muted path of packed earth and strewn straw. Notice how the sound of the world has changed. The distant rhythmic crunch of the watchman's boots has faded entirely, replaced by a silence so profound it feels like a physical presence. Feel the heavy warmth of the thick wool cloak over your shoulders, its weight grounding you, pulling your center of gravity down toward the earth, encouraging your muscles to simply let go. There is no wind here, only the slow, cold breath of the stone walls exhaling the coolness they have gathered since twilight. The houses in this narrow lane lean toward one another, their upper stories almost touching, creating a tunnel of safety and shadow. This is the heart of the residential district, where the families of weavers and dyers have long since retired. You pass a small workshop where a large wooden sign, carved in the shape of a loom, swings imperceptibly in the still air. The scent of the lane is dominated by the clean, sharp aroma of lanolin from the raw wool and the dry, sweet fragrance of the rushes that line the floors inside. In this era, the floors were often strewn with strewing herbs, a mixture of dried meadowsweet, lavender, and mint, which released a calming perfume whenever a foot pressed against them. Even now, through the cracks in the heavy oak doors, that scent drifts out into the night, a botanical lullaby that fills your senses and clears your mind of any lingering thoughts of the day. Inside one of the larger homes, a young apprentice is finishing the evening's most repetitive and meditative chore, the sorting of the fleece for tomorrow's spinning. You watch through a small shuttered window as he sits by the low glow of a single tallow candle. His movements are slow and hypnotic. He reaches into a large wicker basket, pulls out a tuft of cloud-soft wool, and gently pulls it apart, removing tiny bits of clover and dried grass. There is a soft rhythmic swish. Pull. Swish as the fibers are separated and smoothed. It is a task that requires no thought, only the steady, mindless repetition of the hands. He lays each cleaned lock of wool into a wooden tray, stacking them in neat, white rows that look like fallen snow. The candle flame flickers slightly, casting long, lazy shadows that stretch across the ceiling beams, dancing in time with the gentle movement of his arms. You find your own pulse slowing to match the rhythm of his work. Swish, pull, rest. Swish, pull, rest. The boy eventually pauses, his hands resting on the edge of the basket. He looks at the tray of wool, a task completed, a day fulfilled. The candle has burned low, its wick curling into a glowing red spiral that breathes a final tiny wisp of gray smoke into the air. He stands up slowly, his movements heavy with the onset of sleep, and moves toward the hearth. He takes a large ceramic lid, a specialized tool known as a curfew bell, and places it carefully over the remaining red embers of the fire. This act of covering the fire ensures the heat stays trapped in the clay bricks of the hearth, keeping the room temperate throughout the freezing night without the need for a flame. As the light in the room vanishes, replaced by the soft, charcoal glow of the covered coals, you feel a sympathetic wave of drowsiness wash over you. The day's work is stored away, the fire is safe, and the house is ready for the deep, restorative dark. The stillness of the house now spills back out into the lane, merging with the shadows of the overhanging eaves. You continue your walk, feeling as though you are moving through a dream where every stone and every beam is a silent witness to 1,000 years of rest. The sky above the narrow gap of the roofs is a brilliant tapestry of constellations, the Great Bear hanging low and steady over the town's stone church. Your body feels increasingly leaden, your footsteps on the soft earth making no sound at all. The very fabric of the night seems to be woven from the same soft wool you saw in the apprentice's hands, protective, insulating, and infinitely kind. You are no longer a traveler. You are a part of the quietude itself, drifting toward the edge of a sleep that is as deep and unyielding as the oak foundations of the town. Have you ever paused to listen to the breath of an ancient stone cathedral as it rests in the deep of the night? As you leave the narrow, timber-lined lane behind, the sky opens up once more, revealing the grand, silent expanse of the church square. The great stone edifice before you is not a cold or forbidding place, but a massive, sheltering anchor for the town, its limestone walls having absorbed the soft warmth of the sun all through the long summer day. Now, in the midnight hour, the stone exhales that warmth slowly, a gentle radiation that you can almost feel as you draw nearer to the heavy oak doors. Notice the gentle weight of your eyelids as if they were made of fine, heavy silk, beginning to settle and close, mirroring the slow descent of the night as it blankets the world in a profound, hallowed quiet. The atmosphere in the square is one of absolute, unhurried stillness, where the air is scented with a lingering, ghostly sweetness, the scent of cold frankincense and beeswax that has seeped into the very pores of the masonry over centuries of prayer. You walk toward the side entrance, your footsteps on the smooth, worn flagstones making no more sound than a falling leaf. The moonlight catches the intricate carvings above the lintel, illuminating the weathered faces of saints and angels who have watched over the town's sleep since the foundations were first laid. As you enter through the smaller priest's door, the transition is seamless. The air inside is slightly cooler, held at a constant, peaceful temperature by the sheer mass of the walls. The shadows here are not black, but a soft, charcoal gray, punctuated by the tiny amber heartbeats of the few sanctuary lamps that never go out. You find yourself in the long, vaulted side aisle, where the high, pointed arches reach up into the darkness like the branches of a petrified forest, sheltering all within. Deep within the choir, a lone sacristan is performing the most quiet and meditative of the church's nightly duties. He moves with a slow, practiced grace that suggests he could find his way through these halls with his eyes closed, his presence as unobtrusive as the dust motes dancing in a moonbeam. His task is the evening care of the great choir stalls, specifically the maintenance of the misericords, those small, beautifully carved wooden ledges on the underside of the folding seats designed to provide a mercy of support for the clergy during the long-standing hours of the divine office. You watch as he moves from stall to stall, his hands holding a soft linen cloth dampened with a mixture of beeswax and linseed oil. There is a soft rhythmic clink, snip, clink as he occasionally trims a long wick with silver shears before returning to the slow circular motion of polishing the wood. The sound is steady and hypnotic, a metallic punctuation in the vast silence of the nave. He works with a deep, focused reverence, the repetitive motion of his arm creating a low, shushing sound as the cloth glides over the dark, polished oak. The sacristan moves to the next seat, his fingers tracing the carvings of mythical beasts and floral vines that decorate the undersides of the seats. He folds one seat up, then another, his movements making a low, muffled thump that echoes softly up into the vaulted ceiling, a sound that feels as heavy and comforting as a closing book. He applies the oil with a rhythmic, circular pressure, the wood drinking in the moisture, its grain glowing with a dull, rich luster in the dim light. This task is his prayer, a slow and methodical labor that honors the craftsmanship of the past while preparing the space for the prayers of the coming dawn. You find your own breathing falling into step with the sacristan's movements, inhaling as the shears clink, exhaling as the cloth shushes against the wood. The repetition acts as a tether, anchoring your mind to the present moment, stripping away any thoughts of the future or the past until there is only the scent of the oil, the warmth of the wood, and the steady, quiet work of the night. As the sacristan reaches the final stall in the row, the work begins to wind down, leaving the air in the choir feeling thick with a sense of completion and care. The flickering amber light of his small lamp plays across the high altar, catching the glint of gold thread in the heavy brocade cloths, but the light is soft, never harsh, acting more like a warm glow than a piercing beam. The shadows seem to grow even deeper and softer now, the great church settling into a state of total, undisturbed repose. You look up at the high rose window where the moonlight filters through the thick, uneven panes of stained glass, casting pools of muted blue and deep crimson onto the stone floor below. It is a visual lullaby, a kaleidoscope of stillness that invites the mind to drift and wander. The town outside is a world away. Here, in the heart of the stone, there is only the safety of the sanctuary and the knowledge that everything is exactly as it should be. The weight of the night is now a physical comfort, pressing gently against you, inviting you to surrender to the gravity of sleep. Your limbs feel as solid and steady as the limestone pillars that support the roof, while your mind feels as light and airy as the space between the rafters. The sacristan snuffs his small lamp, leaving only the distant, steady glow of the sanctuary light to guide the way. The darkness that remains is kind and familiar, a velvet curtain drawn across the day. Feel the tension in your hands and feet completely dissolve, melting into the cool, dark floor as you prepare to drift deeper into the heart of the medieval night, toward the quiet, starlit garden that waits just beyond the cloister walls. You are safe, you are sheltered, and the night is long and full of peace. Leaving the hallowed stillness of the cathedral behind, you step through a low stone archway and into the open-air sanctuary of the cloister garden. Take a slow, deep breath, and as you exhale, imagine the tension leaving your body like a faint mist, dissipating into the cool, damp night air. Can you smell the change in the atmosphere? The scent of old incense and stone has been replaced by the deep, earthy fragrance of wet soil and the sharp, clean aroma of nocturnal herbs. Notice the subtle coolness of the night air on the tip of your nose, a gentle reminder that while the world sleeps, the earth continues its slow, rhythmic breathing. You are perfectly safe within these high stone walls, sheltered from the winds of the outside world, standing in a space where time seems to have slowed to the pace of a growing vine. The cloister garden, or the Hortus Medicus, is a masterpiece of medieval order and tranquility. Under the silver gaze of the moon, the garden reveals itself in shades of charcoal, slate, and pale frost. The rectangular beds are laid out with geometric precision, divided by narrow paths of crushed limestone that glow like ribbons of silk in the dark. Each bed is bordered by low wattle fences made of woven willow branches, a traditional technique used to protect the delicate physic plants from the reach of small animals. As you stand still, you can hear the faint musical drip, drip, drip of water falling from a stone conduit into a central basin. The sound is steady and hypnotic, a liquid clock marking the passage of a night that has no need for hurry. The air is heavy with the moisture of the low-lying clouds, and the leaves of the sage and rosemary are silvered with a fine coating of dew, making them look as though they have been cast in pewter. In the far corner of the garden, near the apothecary's store, a lone figure moves with the unhurried grace of someone who has spent a lifetime in conversation with the soil. This is the garden's keeper, a man whose hands are stained with the green blood of plants and the dark richness of the earth. His task tonight is not one of planting or harvesting, but of gentle maintenance. A rhythmic tidying of the cloister's stone walkways to ensure the path remains clear for the monks' dawn procession. He holds a broom made of bundled birch twigs, its handle smooth and worn by years of use. Listen to the soft rhythmic swish, swish, swish of the broom as it glides over the stone flags, sweeping away the stray petals and the small dried leaves that have fallen during the day. The sound is a soft whisper, a repetitive shush that seems to tell the garden to remain in its deep emerald slumber. The gardener moves with a slow, deliberate cadence, his body swaying slightly with each stroke of the broom. He works his way along the northern walk, where the shadows of the Gothic arches stretch out like long, dark fingers across the path. He stops occasionally to pull a stray weed from the limestone cracks, his movements so quiet they wouldn't startle a sleeping bird. The swish, swish of his broom is the only punctuation in the silence, a grounding melody that anchors you to the cooling earth. There is a profound sense of peace in watching a task performed with such simple, singular focus. In this moment, the entire universe is reduced to the reach of the broom and the cleanliness of the stone. You find your own pulse slowing, your heart rate harmonizing with the gardener's steady, unhurried pace. Each swish of the birch twigs feels like it is brushing away the cluttered thoughts from your own mind, leaving behind a surface as clean and calm as the moonlit stones. As the gardener nears the end of the walkway, the task begins to wind down, leaving the garden in a state of pristine, ordered quiet. He leans his broom against the stone wall, the wood making a dull, comforting thud that signals the completion of his work. He walks to the central fountain and dips his hands into the water, the slosh, slosh of the cool liquid, a refreshing finality to his labor. The garden feels even more secluded now, a hortus conclusus, an enclosed garden that serves as a metaphor for the soul's inner peace. The high walls of the cloister trap the silence, pressing it down onto the beds of lavender and thyme until the air feels thick and heavy with rest. The moon has climbed higher now, turning the central basin into a shimmering mirror that reflects the vast, unchanging stars. You feel a deep sense of completion, as if the gardener's work has cleared a path for your own journey into the deeper realms of sleep. The weight of the night is settling into your very bones, a kind and heavy gravity that invites you to find rest. Your limbs feel as though they are becoming part of the garden itself, deeply rooted, quiet, and still. The swish of the broom remains as a faint echo in your memory, a rhythmic lullaby that continues to soothe your spirit long after the sound has ceased. Every muscle in your body is now a pool of soft, warm liquid, sinking deeper into the supportive embrace of the night. The shadows of the arches are soft and inviting, like the dark pages of a book closing at the end of a long, beautiful chapter. You are drifting now, moving with the slow, invisible creep of the ivy, toward the warmth of the infirmary fire that flickers in the distance. The garden is at peace, the path is clear, and you are ready to surrender to the velvet dark. As you step away from the fountain's rhythmic drip and move toward the heavy, iron-studded door of the scriptorium, take another slow, intentional breath. Feel the transition from the damp, cool garden air to the dry, seasoned warmth of the stone interior. Can you sense the weight of the silence here? It is a different kind of quiet, a silence filled with the echoes of ancient wisdom and the scent of 1,000 years of patient labor. Feel the heavy, tired weight of your hands resting in your lap, and as you do, imagine all the tension in your fingers and palms simply melting away, leaving you as still as the statues in the cathedral's niches. You are entering a sanctuary of thought and ink, a place where the hustle of the medieval day never reaches, and where the only task is the slow, deliberate preservation of the past. The atmosphere inside the scriptorium is thick with the rich, intoxicating aroma of a medieval library. It is a blend of aged beeswax, used to polish the heavy oak carrels, and the sharp, earthy tang of oak gall ink, a mixture of iron salts and tannin from crushed oak galls that has turned a deep, midnight black over time. The room is a high, vaulted space with narrow lancet windows that allow the moonlight to spill across the floor in silver slashes. Along the walls, the books rest on their sides on slanted lecterns, many of them secured by heavy iron chains to the stone walls. These libri catenati, or chain books, were a common sight in medieval libraries, ensuring that the precious hand-copied wisdom remained safe for all who sought it. The air is warm and perfectly still, held at a gentle temperature by a small charcoal brazier that glows in the corner like a dying star, casting long, soft-edged shadows that dance slowly across the parchment-lined shelves. In the center of the room, seated at a high slanted desk, a lone scholar is concluding the evening's quietest labor. He is not writing tonight, for the light is too dim for the fine work of illumination. Instead, he is engaged in the repetitive, meditative process of preparing the parchment for the coming day's script. He holds a small, porous bag made of fine linen, filled with a mixture of crushed pumice and powdered bone known as pounce. This powder is used to smooth the surface of the vellum, which was traditionally made from the specially treated skin of calves or sheep, and to ensure that the ink will not bleed into the fibers. Listen to the soft, rhythmic tap, tap of the pounce bag against the vellum, followed by the low shushing sound of a soft brush clearing the powder away. The sound is as steady as a heartbeat, a small, percussive song that fills the vaulted room with a sense of order and calm. The scholar moves with a slow, deliberate cadence, his movements refined by years of repetition. He taps the bag against the cream-colored surface of the parchment, creating a tiny, ghostly cloud of white dust that settles like a layer of frost. Then, with a wide brush made of squirrel hair, he sweeps the powder in long, even strokes across the page. Tap, 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 swish, tap, 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 swish. It is a visual and auditory lullaby, a cycle of preparation that requires no complex thought, only the steady, rhythmic application of the hand. You watch as the moonlight catches the dust motes rising in the air, turning the scriptorium into a shimmering, underwater world where time has lost its meaning. The scholar's face is a mask of total tranquility, his eyes half closed as he feels for any imperfections in the grain of the skin. You find your own breathing falling into step with his work, inhaling as he taps the bag, exhaling as he brushes the powder away, letting the rhythm clear your mind of any remaining sparks of energy. As the scholar finishes the final sheet of vellum, the work begins to wind down into a state of profound completion. He carefully stacks the prepared pages, the thrum of the heavy parchment sheets settling against one another, sounding like the wings of a large, slow-moving bird. He takes a small, silver-handled quill and places it in a tray of dried sand, the edge of the sand swallowing the tip of the pen in a gesture of finality. The room feels even more enclosed and protected now, a fortress of vellum and oak that guards the quietude of the night. The shadows of the chained books stretch across the floor, looking like the dark, peaceful keys of a silent organ. You feel a deep sense of safety in this room, knowing that the knowledge of the world is resting here, tucked away in the dark, and that there is absolutely nothing left for you to do but exist in this moment of perfect, scholarly peace. The weight of the midnight hour is now a heavy, warm quilt that covers your spirit, inviting you to let go of the waking world entirely. Your body feels as stationary as the stone lecterns, while your thoughts are as light and drifting as the pounced dust in the moonbeams. The rhythmic tap of the pounce bag remains as a comforting echo in your mind, a steady anchor that keeps you drifting in the calmest of waters. Every breath you take is now a shallow, effortless sigh, a surrender to the velvet darkness that fills the corners of the scriptorium. The charcoal in the brazier settles with a soft, melodic crackle, a tiny sound of heat and rest that signals the end of the day's labors. You are drifting now, moving with the slow, invisible pull of the night, toward the deep, dreamless sleep that waits beneath the vaulted ceiling. The library is still, the vellum is smooth, and you are ready to vanish into the peace of the past. As you leave the quiet corridors of the scriptorium, let the cool stone air brush past you one last time before we transition into a different kind of sanctuary, a place of warmth, yeast, and the ancient rhythm of sustenance. Step softly across the small courtyard, guided by the flickering amber light of a distant lantern, and find your way toward the low-slung building where the town's communal bakehouse sits nestled against the stone walls of the granary. Take a deep, slow breath, and as you do, notice how the air begins to change, growing thicker, sweeter, and significantly warmer. Can you feel the shift in your own energy? The intellectual stillness of the library is replaced by a physical, grounding heat that seems to radiate from the very earth. Allow the muscles in your jaw and your tongue to completely relax, letting go of any words or thoughts that might be lingering there, as we enter a space where the only language is the soft, rhythmic sigh of rising dough and the gentle crackle of cooling stones. The atmosphere inside the bakehouse is a sensory masterpiece of the medieval night. It is a world draped in a fine silken veil of flower dust that hangs suspended in the air, catching the moonlight in a way that makes the room feel as though it were filled with a soft, white mist. The scent here is profoundly comforting, a rich, complex bouquet of fermented sourdough levain, the nutty aroma of freshly milled rye, and the dry, smoky whisper of scorched oak wood. In the center of the room stands the great communal oven, a massive beehive structure built of thick thermal clay and river stones. This oven is a marvel of medieval engineering, designed to hold heat for hours after the fire has been raked out. In accordance with the assize of bread, a series of laws dating back to the 13th century that regulated the weight and quality of bread, the town's bakers worked through the night to ensure that every loaf was prepared with honesty and care. The heat in the room is not oppressive, but rather a soft, enveloping embrace that coaxes your heart rate into a slow, steady pulse. Near a large, hollowed-out wooden trough known as a hutch, a baker's assistant is engaged in the most essential and repetitive labor of the night. He is not rushing. His movements are governed by the slow, biological clock of the yeast. He leans over the trough, his arms dusted in white, and begins the rhythmic process of kneading the great mass of dough that will become the morning's bread. Listen to the soft, rhythmic thump. Fold. Press. Thump. Fold. Press as his palms work the heavy, elastic dough. The sound is deep and muffled, a percussive melody that resonates in the wooden legs of the trough and vibrates softly through the floorboards. There is no urgency in his work, only a steady, mindless devotion to the texture of the grain. He folds the dough over itself, presses down with the weight of his shoulders, and then rotates the mass, repeating the cycle with the precision of a ticking clock. Thump. Fold. Press. Thump. Fold. Press. The assistant moves with a hypnotic cadence, his body swaying in a slow, circular motion that mirrors the kneading process. He is working with a blend of wheat and barley, a common maslin flour that was a staple of the medieval diet. You watch as the dough transforms under his hands, becoming smoother, glossier, and more resilient with every rotation. The thump of the dough against the wood is a grounding anchor, a sound that has been heard in this town every night for centuries, providing a sense of continuity and safety that is as reliable as the rising sun. The flour dust on his skin catches the dim glow of a single tallow candle, making him look like a statue brought to life in a dream. You find your own breathing synchronizing with the thump-fold press of the kneading, your chest rising and falling in perfect time with the assistant's labor. It is a meditation in motion, a repetitive prayer of flour and water that strips away the complexities of the world until only the sensation of movement remains. As the dough reaches its perfect consistency, the assistant slows his pace, the thump becoming softer and more infrequent. He begins to divide the large mass into smaller, rounded boules, his hands moving with the delicacy of a sculptor. He places each loaf into a woven basket lined with linen, where they will sit in the warmth to rise. The task is winding down now, leaving the bakehouse in a state of quiet, expectant preparation. He takes a large wooden peel, a long-handled paddle, and uses it to adjust the few remaining embers at the back of the oven, the scrape of the wood on the stone floor, a dry, satisfying conclusion to the work. The room feels incredibly safe and contained, a fortress of warmth where the primary goal is the creation of life's most basic necessity. The heat from the clay oven continues to radiate outward, a steady, invisible wave of comfort that settles over the room like a thick wool blanket. Feel the heavy-rooted stability of your hips and lower back as you imagine yourself leaning against a sturdy wooden bench in the corner of this warm kitchen. The tension in your spine seems to dissolve into the wood, as if you are becoming part of the bakehouse itself, sturdy, warm, and at peace. The rhythmic thump of the kneading remains as a soft, phantom vibration in your mind, a soothing cadence that continues to lull you into a state of deeper relaxation. Every breath you take now is infused with the scent of rising bread, a fragrance that signals the body it is time for rest and nourishment. The tallow candle flickers and dies, leaving only the soft, cherry-red glow of the oven to light the room. You are drifting now, moving with the slow, invisible expansion of the dough, toward a sleep that is as deep and wholesome as the loaves cooling on the rack. The oven is warm, the bread is rising, and you are ready to surrender to the night. As you step out of the bakehouse, the transition from the golden warmth of the oven to the cool, sapphire air of the open square is like a soft, invisible curtain being drawn across your skin. Take a slow, intentional breath, and as you exhale, imagine the lingering heat of the bakery dissolving into the night mist, leaving you refreshed and incredibly light. Have you ever noticed how the air feels different in the deep middle of the night, as if the darkness itself has a weight and a texture that is both cooling and protective? Notice the heavy, relaxed weight of your legs, from your hips all the way down to your toes, as you stand for a moment on the edge of the marketplace. Your body feels steady and grounded, a part of the ancient earth that has supported this town for 1,000 years. The world is perfectly balanced, perfectly still, and you are exactly where you are meant to be. The market square, so bustling and loud during the daylight hours, has transformed into a vast, silent lake of shadows. The wooden stalls of the mercers and the fishmongers have been dismantled or shuttered, their skeletal frames looking like sleeping giants under the watchful eye of the moon. The scent here is a delicate tapestry of the town's history, the faint, lingering aroma of dried hay from the animal pens, the sharp tang of wet limestone, and the cool, sweet smell of the night-blooming jasmine that climbs the walls of the Guildhall. The ground is a patchwork of moonlight and dark velvet, where the silver light catches the edges of the smooth cobblestones, making them look like a river of frozen stars. In the center of this stillness stands the great well, the heart of the ward, its stone wall worn smooth by the touch of countless hands over the centuries. This well is a masterpiece of medieval communal life, a shared resource that binds the neighbors together in a silent, watery pact. Beside the well, a lone figure is engaged in the final, most essential chore of the night. He is a servant from the nearby manor house, sent to fetch a final cask of water for the morning's first light. He moves with a slow, deliberate economy of motion, his body leaning into the rhythm of the work as if it were a familiar dance. He reaches for the heavy wooden handle of the windlass, the horizontal cylinder used to raise the bucket, and begins the slow process of lowering the vessel into the dark. Listen to the slow rhythmic creak, splash, creak of the well windlass as it turns. The sound is deep and wooden, a low-frequency melody that vibrates through the stones and echoes softly against the surrounding houses. Creak, splash, creak. It is a sound that speaks of depth, of patience, and of the steady, unhurried nature of the world before the clock became a master. The servant leans his weight against the stone wall, his hands guiding the hemp rope with a practiced ease. You watch as the bucket disappears into the blackness of the shaft, the splash of the water far below a distant, musical note that signals the bucket has reached the cool, subterranean source. Then the rhythm changes as he begins to wind the handle back, the creak growing slightly higher in pitch as the weight of the water rises. This windlass mechanism was a vital piece of medieval technology, a simple but effective machine that utilized mechanical advantage to make the heavy labor of the night feel like a gentle, repetitive exercise. You find your own breathing falling into step with the rotation of the handle, inhaling as the rope winds up, exhaling as the servant pauses to adjust his grip. The repetition is hypnotic, a circling motion that pulls your focus deeper and deeper into the center of the square, stripping away everything but the sound of wood on wood and the smell of cold, fresh water. As the heavy oak bucket reaches the top, the servant pauses, allowing the excess water to spill back into the well with a soft, splashing sigh. He carefully pours the water into a smaller wooden cask, the glug, glug, glug of the liquid filling the container, a satisfying, liquid conclusion to the task. He then takes a small piece of linen and wipes the rim of the cask, his movements as careful and reverent as if he were handling a precious treasure. The task is finished, the water is secured, and the square returns to its state of absolute, unmoving silence. The servant picks up the cask, the handle making a soft, metallic click against the wood, and walks slowly toward the shadows of the manor wall. His departure is quiet, his footsteps on the wet stones a fading echo that eventually vanishes into the mist, leaving the well to stand alone in the moonlight once more. The silence that remains is even deeper than before, a heavy liquid quiet that seems to flow out from the well and fill every corner of the square. The moonlight continues to play across the surface of the stones, creating a shifting map of light and shadow that invites your mind to wander and drift. Feel the tension in your back and shoulders completely dissolve, as if you were the water itself, fluid, cool, and perfectly at rest. The square is a sanctuary of stone and moonlight, a place where the world has stopped turning for a few hours of much-needed repose. Every breath you take now is a slow, easy wave that carries you further away from the waking world and closer to the soft, blurred edges of a deep, dreamless sleep. The well is still, the water is calm, and you are ready to surrender to the velvet dark that waits in the shadow of the Guildhall. Take another slow, luxurious breath, inhaling the cool midnight air of the town square, and then let it go, feeling your shoulders drop another fraction of an inch. Have you ever found deep, undeniable comfort in the quiet, steady presence of a gentle resting creature? As we leave the silent stone well behind, we drift toward the edge of the great manor house, guided by the faintest scent of sweet, dried grass and warm earth. We are walking toward the manor stables, a long, low building of heavy timber and thick wattle walls that stands as a fortress of warmth in the cool night. Notice the muscles at the base of your skull and the back of your neck, and gently invite them to completely soften, releasing any residual tightness, letting your head rest heavily against your pillow just as the town rests against the earth. The atmosphere inside the stable is a profound shift from the crisp, open air of the cobbled square. As you step through the heavy, iron-bound oak doors, which have been left slightly ajar to allow the fresh air to circulate, you are immediately enveloped in a thick, insulating blanket of warmth. The temperature here is naturally higher, generated by the slow, resting bodies of the magnificent draft horses and palfreys housed within. The scent is incredibly soothing, a rich, agrarian perfume composed of sun-dried summer hay, crushed oats, the faint, sweet oil of supple leather tack, and the deep, grounding aroma of the horses themselves. The floor beneath your feet is no longer hard stone, but a soft, silencing layer of packed earth covered in a thick bed of golden straw. Every step you take is entirely muted, absorbed by the straw, making you feel as though you are walking on a cloud of dried summer fields. The stable is wrapped in a heavy, peaceful darkness, save for a single beautifully diffused source of light. Hanging from a thick wooden peg on a central post is a traditional medieval lantern. This is not a lantern of glass, which was rare and prone to shattering, but an ingeniously crafted vessel where the window panels are made from thinly scraped, translucent ox horn. This historical technique of boiling and pressing the horn until it was thin enough to let light pass through creates a mesmerizing effect. The flame within does not pierce the darkness with a sharp glare. Instead, the horn diffuses the light into a soft, hazy amber glow that is incredibly gentle on the eyes. It casts long, lazy shadows across the wooden stall partitions, creating a muted, golden sanctuary that tells the mind there is absolutely nothing left to fear or figure out. Down the long aisle, bathed in the softest edge of the lantern's amber reach, a stable hand is performing the final, quietest duty of his long day. He stands beside a massive, dapple-gray destrier, a knight's horse of immense power, now entirely docile and sleepy in the midnight hour. The stable hand is not working with urgency. His movements are a slow, rolling meditation. He holds a soft bristled body brush, its back carved from smooth ash wood, and he is gently sweeping away the last dust of the day from the horse's broad shoulder. Listen to the slow rhythmic brush, sweep, brush, sweep of the bristles gliding over the horse's thick coat. The sound is a low, papery whisper, a repetitive shushing that synchronizes perfectly with the slow, deep exhalations of the resting animal. The horse stands with its head lowered, its heavy eyelids half closed, entirely surrendered to the soothing touch. The stable hand moves with a fluid, hypnotic grace, shifting his weight from one foot to the other in a slow, rocking motion. He runs the brush down the muscular neck, over the shoulder, and across the wide flank. Brush, sweep, brush, sweep. The sound is an auditory balm, a repetitive, friction-filled whisper that clears the mind of any lingering thoughts. As the brush moves, tiny invisible motes of dust are lifted into the air, catching the faint amber light and drifting sluggishly before settling back down into the straw. The sheer size of the horse, combined with its absolute gentleness, radiates a feeling of immense safety and protection. You find your own breathing matching the heavy, bellows-like rise and fall of the horse's chest. With every brush, you inhale the sweet scent of the hay. With every sweep, you exhale any remaining tension from your body. The stable hand eventually slows his movements, the brush, sweep becoming even softer, barely grazing the surface of the coat. The grooming is a language of care, a silent agreement between man and beast that the day's labor is officially over. He taps the wooden back of the brush gently against his palm, a soft, muted thwack that knocks the dust free, and places it carefully into a leather bucket. Then he reaches for a heavy woolen blanket stacked neatly on the stable partition. Feel the heavy warmth of this thick gray wool covering your own body, noticing how the weight instantly presses you deeper into relaxation. The stable hand unfolds the wool and drapes it slowly over the horse's wide back. The horse responds with a long, fluttering exhale through its velvety nostrils, a sound of pure, unadulterated comfort that vibrates softly into the cool air. The horse shifts its weight ever so slightly, the hooves making a low, muffled shuffle in the straw, and finally drops its heavy head further still, entering a state of twilight rest. The stable hand turns away from the stall, reaching out to gently close the thick wooden half-door. The wooden latch drops into its heavy iron keep with a soft, final clunk. It is the sound of safety, of being completely enclosed and protected from the elements. He takes the lantern from its peg, its handle creaking softly under the weight, and begins a final slow walk down the long shadowed aisle. The amber light moves with him, gently swaying, casting a warm glow on the faces of the other sleeping horses, who acknowledge his passing only with the twitch of an ear or the slow blink of an eye. The shadows that fill the space behind him are deeply comforting, a soft, heavy indigo that replaces the light with absolute, undisturbed peace. You are watching the light recede, growing smaller and softer, while the air in the stable seems to grow heavier, pressing down on your limbs with the weight of sleep. The stable hand reaches the far end of the long building, the lantern becoming just a tiny, distant, hazy spark. The darkness that rushes in to fill the space is the kindest, safest darkness imaginable. The smell of sweet hay is the only thing left to anchor you. The heavy, rhythmic breathing of the great destrier remains as a slow, deep metronome in your memory, a steady cadence that continues to lull you into a state of even deeper relaxation. Every breath you take is now a shallow, effortless sigh, a total surrender to the velvet darkness that fills the corners of the stable. The world outside is entirely forgotten, locked away beyond the heavy oak doors, and you are ready to vanish into the profound peace of the medieval night. The horses are quiet, the straw is warm, and you are ready to drift toward the sleeping manor house that waits just beyond the yard. As you move away from the rhythmic, warm breathing of the stables, let your consciousness drift toward the high, moon-washed stone of the manor house's great hall. Take a long, slow breath, pulling in the crispness of the night air, and as you exhale, imagine your body becoming as light as a drifting feather, floating toward the sanctuary of the interior. The transition from the earthy, straw-scented stable to the refined, cool air of the manor is like moving from one dream into another, deeper layer of rest. Notice the sensation of your jaw softening, the muscles around your mouth relaxing as if you were about to let out a long, silent sigh of relief. You are entering the skeletal heart of the home, a place where the grandeur of the day has folded itself into the soft, gray shadows of the midnight hour. The atmosphere within the great hall is one of immense, vaulted majesty, now hushed and humbled by the dark. The high timber roof, constructed with massive hammer beams that curve like the ribs of a great wooden ship, is lost in a sea of indigo shadow. The scent here is a sophisticated blend of the house's long history, the faint, lingering perfume of beeswax floor polish, the dry, herbal scent of the rushes that carpet the stone floor, and the ghostly, metallic tang of the suits of armor standing like silent sentinels along the walls. These rushes are not merely straw, but a carefully chosen mixture of green botanicals. In a well-managed medieval household, the rushes were often layered with sweet flag, an aromatic plant that releases a scent similar to cinnamon when stepped upon. Even now, in the stillness, a faint, spicy warmth rises from the floor, anchoring your senses to the solid, dependable earth of the manor. At the far end of the hall, near the massive stone hearth, a young page is performing the final, most rhythmic ritual of the evening. He is the guardian of the light, tasked with the slow, methodical snuffing of the great iron chandeliers that hang from the rafters. To reach them, he uses a specialized tool, a long wooden pole with a small inverted silver cone at the tip, known as a doubter or a snuffer. He moves with a slow, focused grace, his eyes fixed on the flickering tallow candles far above. Listen to the soft, rhythmic clink. Clink. Hiss as the silver cone meets the iron rim and then smothers the flame. The clink is a high, clear note that rings briefly through the rafters, followed by the hiss of the flame vanishing into a tiny, fragrant wisp of gray smoke. The page moves with a hypnotic, swaying motion, his shadow stretching and shrinking across the tapestries that line the walls. Each clink hiss marks the departure of another small sun, leaving the hall a fraction darker, a fraction quieter. This repetitive task is a visual and auditory countdown to total repose. You watch as he maneuvers the long pole with practiced ease, the silver cone dancing from wick to wick. The smell of the extinguished tallow, a heavy, slightly fatty scent, mingles with the cinnamon of the rushes, creating an olfactory lullaby that signals the brain to cease its wandering. You find your own pulse slowing to match the page's steady pace. Inhale as the pole rises. Exhale as the flame is snuffed. It is a slow downward spiral into the dark, a gentle stripping away of the visual world until only the texture of the silence remains. As the final chandelier is darkened, the page lowers his pole, the wood making a soft, hollow thud as it rests against the stone floor. The great hall is now lit only by the dying cherry-red glow of the massive log in the hearth and the silver fingers of moonlight reaching through the high clerestory windows. The task is complete and the hall feels immensely safe, a stone fortress designed to protect the dreams of those who dwell within. The page turns and walks toward the servants' stairs, his footsteps entirely swallowed by the thick layer of aromatic rushes. His departure leaves the hall in a state of pristine, undisturbed quiet, where the only sound is the occasional soft pop of the cooling embers in the fireplace. This sound is a tiny, fiery heartbeat, a reminder that the warmth is still there, tucked away under the ash, waiting for the morning. Feel the heavy, supportive warmth of your own bed pressing against your back, imagining it is as solid and enduring as the limestone hearth of the manor. Your limbs feel long and heavy, sinking into the soft layers of your covers like the page's feet sinking into the rushes. The rhythmic clink hiss of the snuffing pole remains as a fading echo in your mind, a steady, metallic lullaby that continues to clear your thoughts of any remaining light. Every breath you take is now a shallow, effortless ripple, a surrender to the velvet darkness that fills the high corners of the rafters. The hall is silent, the candles are out, and you are ready to move deeper into the manor's private chambers, toward the soft silk and heavy furs of the sleeping rooms. You are safe, you are held, and the night is deep. Take a slow, deep breath, and as you exhale, imagine your consciousness drifting upward, away from the vast, echoing great hall and toward the intimate, cedar-scented warmth of the solar. This is the manor's private sanctuary, the sunroom, or family chamber, where the stone walls are hidden behind rich oak panels and the air feels thick with the promise of rest. Notice the feeling of your jaw softening, the muscles around your eyes relaxing as you leave the public world behind and enter the most guarded, peaceful heart of the home. You are stepping into a space designed for total seclusion, a room that feels like a warm, wooden embrace, where the only light is the silver ghost of the moon filtering through small, diamond-shaped panes of leaded glass. The atmosphere in the solar is profoundly quiet, a hush that seems to have been woven into the very fabric of the room over generations. The walls are adorned with linen fold carving, a magnificent 15th century wood carving technique where the oak panels are sculpted to look like soft, undulating folds of hanging fabric. This artistic choice gives the room a unique, organic texture, as if the very walls were made of frozen silk, softening the acoustics and catching the dim light in a way that is incredibly soothing to the eye. The scent here is a delicate, maternal blend of dried roses, sweet woodruff, and the clean, sharp fragrance of fresh beeswax used to polish the heavy furniture. In the center of the room stands the great bed, a massive four-poster structure that acts as a room within a room. It is a fortress of comfort, draped in heavy damask curtains that are thick enough to trap the warmth of the hearth and exclude even the smallest draft of the midnight air. Near the foot of the bed, a dedicated chambermaid is performing the final, most tactile ritual of the evening. She is not rushing. Her movements are slow and deliberate, governed by a deep respect for the sanctity of the bed. Her task is the turning down of the linens and the smoothing of the heavy, hand-woven sheets. She reaches out and pulls back the top layer of dark, heavy sable furs, exposing the pale, cream-colored surface of the linen underneath. Feel the cool, crisp texture of the fine linen against your palms, a sensation that is both refreshing and deeply grounding. The linen has been laundered with wood ash and lavender, and as it is moved, it releases a faint, clean perfume that fills the immediate air around the bed. The maid begins to smooth the bottom sheet, her hands moving in long rhythmic arcs from the center to the edges. Listen to the soft rhythmic slide as her palms glide over the fabric. The sound is a low-frequency whisper, a repetitive friction that acts as an auditory lullaby. Slide. It is a sound of order and care, a methodical erasing of the day's wrinkles and creases. She works her way around the massive oak frame, tucking the corners with a precision that suggests she is sealing the bed against any possible discomfort. You watch as the moonlight catches the movement of her hands, making them look like pale birds drifting over a still, white lake. You find your own breathing falling into perfect synchronization with her movements, inhaling as her hands reach out, exhaling as they slide back, smoothing away not just the folds in the cloth, but the lingering tensions in your own mind. As she finishes the bottom sheet, she reaches for the truckle bed, a smaller, low-profile bed on wooden wheels that is stored beneath the main frame during the day. She pulls it out just a few inches, the clack creak of the wooden wheels on the floorboards, a soft, familiar punctuation in the silence. This bed is where the personal servants or children would sleep, ensuring that the family was never truly alone in the dark. She smooths the smaller blankets with the same rhythmic care, her movements a mirror of the work she performed on the great bed. The task is winding down now, and the solar feels like a perfectly ordered cocoon, a sanctuary of wood, wool, and linen where every surface has been prepared for the total surrender of the body. The shadows of the linen fold panels stretch across the floor, looking like the soft, dark waves of a gentle sea. The weight of the night is now a physical presence in the room, a heavy, warm gravity that pulls you toward the center of the bed. Your limbs feel as long and relaxed as the carved columns of the four-poster, while your thoughts are as light and drifting as the lavender scent in the air. The rhythmic of the linen remains as a soothing echo in your memory, a steady, domestic heartbeat that continues to clear your spirit of any remaining noise. Every breath you take is now a slow, effortless ripple, a total surrender to the velvet darkness that fills the corners of the solar. The curtains are ready to be drawn, the furs are warm, and you are ready to vanish into the deep, dreamless sleep that waits within the heart of the manor. The house is silent, the linens are smooth, and you are ready to rest. Take a long, slow breath in, and as you release it, imagine your consciousness drifting away from the soft silks of the solar and toward the massive, protective embrace of the town's stone gatehouse. Can you feel the shift in the air? It is cooler here, moving with a gentle, unobstructed flow that carries the scent of the open fields and the distant forest. Notice the sensation of the cool, solid pressure of the stone wall against your shoulder, a feeling of absolute stability that anchors your body to the very foundations of the town. You are standing in the highest chamber of the gate, a space of thick masonry and heavy oak beams, where the only task is to watch the moon sail across the vast, dark ocean of the sky. As you breathe out, let your weight settle fully into the stone, allowing the strength of the wall to hold you, releasing every ounce of effort from your back and legs. The atmosphere within the gatehouse is one of quiet, fortified serenity. The walls are made of massive blocks of rough-hewn limestone, several feet thick, which have stood as a silent barrier between the bustle of the town and the wildness of the world for centuries. The scent is clean and elemental, the mineral tang of cold stone, the faint bitterness of iron, and the sweet, damp smell of the night mist rising from the moat below. High above, the heavy timber joists of the ceiling are home to a few sleeping swallows, their presence marked only by a rare, soft rustle of feathers in the dark. In the center of the floor sits the massive mechanism for the portcullis, the heavy iron and wood grate that secures the entrance. Beside the main archway is the wicket gate, a small, sturdy door built into the larger gate structure. Historically, the wicket gate was the only entrance used during the late hours, allowing a single traveler to pass through while keeping the main defenses securely locked. This small door represents a point of transition, a narrow bridge between the safety of the hearth and the mystery of the starlit valley beyond. On the walkway of the battlements, just outside the arched window of the gatehouse, a lone guard is finishing his midnight watch. He is not a soldier at war, but a peaceful sentinel of the dark, a man whose presence is as much a part of the town's rhythm as the tolling of the church bell. He moves with a slow, heavy-lidded grace, his footsteps making no sound on the lead-covered roof. He carries a long wooden staff, tipped with a decorative iron head, which he uses more as a walking stick than a weapon. Listen to the soft, rhythmic tap, shuffle, tap of the staff on the stone floor as he paces the short length of the gallery. The sound is steady and hypnotic. Tap, shuffle, tap, a repetitive cadence that echoes softly against the crenellations. He pauses at each turn, leaning his weight against the cold stone to look out over the silvered landscape, before beginning the slow walk back. The guard's movements are a meditation in consistency. He stops at the eastern edge of the tower, his hands resting on the rough limestone, and watches a bank of low-lying fog roll slowly across the river meadows. The tap, shuffle, tap of his staff resumes, a heartbeat for the gatehouse that signals all is well. You watch as the moonlight catches the dull gleam of his leather jerkin and the soft curve of his woolen cap. His breath comes in slow, even plumes of white mist that vanish instantly into the night air. There is a profound sense of security in watching his unhurried pace. He is a guardian who has no reason to be alarmed, a man who knows every shadow and every stone. You find your own pulse slowing to match the tap of his staff, each gentle strike on the stone acting as a signal for your mind to let go of another layer of thought. The repetition creates a safe, predictable loop that excludes the chaos of the waking world, leaving only the rhythm of the watch and the coolness of the limestone. As the guard reaches the end of his gallery for the final time this hour, his pace slows even further, the tap becoming softer, a mere whisper of wood against stone. He leans his staff against the interior wall, the wood making a muffled clunk that marks the beginning of his period of rest. The gatehouse feels even more secluded now, a stone island floating in a sea of indigo mist. The silver light of the moon spills through the lancet windows, casting long, still shadows that look like dark velvet ribbons across the floor. The landscape outside is a masterpiece of monochromatic peace. The distant hills are soft charcoal silhouettes, and the river is a winding thread of mercury. The task of watching is no longer a labor. It is a way of being, a silent participation in the stillness of the earth. You feel a deep sense of completion, as if the guard's steady pacing has successfully woven a web of protection around the entire town, allowing everyone within to sink deeper into their dreams. The weight of the night is now a heavy, comforting mantle that rests upon your shoulders, inviting you to surrender to the gravity of the dark. Your limbs feel as solid and enduring as the limestone gate, while your spirit is as light and drifting as the river fog. The rhythmic tap of the staff remains as a fading vibration in your memory, a steady wooden lullaby that continues to ground you in this moment of absolute safety. Every breath you take is now a slow, effortless sigh, a total surrender to the velvet darkness that fills the vaulted chambers of the gatehouse. The wicket gate is barred, the sentry is still, and you are ready to drift away from the high walls and toward the soft, meadow-scented peace of the valley below. The world is secure, the night is silent, and you are ready to rest. As you descend from the silent heights of the gatehouse, leaving the watchful sentry behind, imagine yourself drifting toward the low-lying mist that clings to the riverbank. Take a slow, deep breath of the damp night air, and as you exhale, feel your body becoming heavy and grounded, as if you were sinking into a soft, cool moss. The sound of the town begins to change once more. The dry, stony echoes of the square are replaced by the liquid, low-frequency song of the rushing water. Notice the faint, steady vibration of the wooden floorboards beneath your feet as you approach the massive, timbered structure of the town's watermill. This vibration is not a jarring shake, but a deep, comforting hum that seems to resonate with the very marrow of your bones, a rhythmic pulse that tells you the world is still turning, even in the depths of the night. The atmosphere around the mill is a symphony of moisture and earth. The scent is a rich, intoxicating blend of cold, rushing river water, the green, mossy smell of wet oak, and the dry, sweet dust of freshly ground rye. The building itself is a masterpiece of medieval carpentry, constructed from enormous beams of heart of oak that have been seasoned by decades of spray and flour. Inside, the air is cool and thick with a fine silken mist of grain dust that settles on every surface like a layer of pale moonlight. This is the mill, the mechanical heart of the medieval community. Historically, the mill was often a place of great significance, managed by the multure system where a portion of the grain was kept as a fee for the lord of the manor. Tonight, however, there is no commerce, only the steady, mindless work of the river. The moonlight reflects off the churned water of the mill race, casting dancing, liquid patterns of light across the ceiling joists, making the entire room feel as though it were submerged in a slow-moving, silver dream. In the dim shadows of the lower floor, near the massive vertical shaft that connects the water wheel to the grinding stones, a young apprentice is performing a quiet, nocturnal ritual. He is not milling grain tonight. Instead, he is engaged in the slow, methodical cleaning of the trough, or the wooden troughs that lead from the hopper to the stones. He holds a short-handled brush made of stiff hog bristles, and his movements are governed by the inexorable rhythm of the wheel outside. Listen to the steady, rhythmic thrum-clack, thrum-clack, thrum-clack of the mill's machinery. The thrum is the deep, watery vibration of the wheel hitting the stream, and the clack is the sound of the wooden damsel, a small, vibrating arm, striking the shoe of the hopper to ensure a steady flow of grain. Even though the hopper is empty now, the machinery continues its song, a repetitive, mechanical heartbeat that fills the space with a sense of eternal motion. The apprentice moves with a slow, swaying grace, his shadow merging with the dark silhouettes of the great wooden cogs. He reaches into the trough and begins to sweep away the stray flour that has gathered in the corners, his hands moving in time with the thrum-clack of the wheel. The swish, Swish of his brush is a soft domestic punctuation in the grander roar of the water. He is checking the mill rind, the heavy X-shaped iron support that balances the massive upper runner stone on the spindle. This small but vital piece of iron is the fulcrum upon which the entire process turns, and he treats it with the reverence one might show a sacred relic. You watch as he applies a small amount of rendered fat to the spindle, the hiss of the grease a tiny slippery sound that vanishes into the thrum of the floorboards. There is a profound sense of peace in this repetitive care. The mill is being tended to, its heavy heart lubricated and cleaned, ensuring that when the sun rises, the town will have its daily bread. As the apprentice finishes his cleaning, the work begins to wind down, leaving the mill in a state of expectant, vibrant rest. He leans his brush against a stack of empty linen sacks, the fabric making a soft, muffled whump that signals the end of his watch. He walks to the edge of the mill race and looks out at the water, his body leaning into the vibration of the floor. The thrum clack of the wheel seems to grow softer and more melodic as your mind adapts to its presence, becoming a background hum that invites you to drift away. The mill feels like a living creature, a gentle giant of wood and stone that breathes with the rhythm of the river. The shadows of the great cogs stretch across the flour-dusted floor, looking like the silent, resting teeth of a world that has no need for hurry. You feel a deep sense of security here, knowing that the power of the water is being harnessed so peacefully, providing for the town while the people sleep. The weight of the night is now a heavy, vibrating warmth that fills your entire being, pulling you down into a state of total liquid relaxation. Your limbs feel as heavy and steady as the great millstones, while your thoughts are as light and drifting as the flour dust in the moonbeams. The rhythmic thrum clack of the machinery remains as a steady, grounding anchor in your memory, a mechanical lullaby that continues to soothe your spirit. Every breath you take is now a slow, effortless wave, synchronized with the rise and fall of the river. The wheel is turning, the stones are still, and you are ready to drift away from the rushing water and toward the soft, silent meadows that wait on the other side of the bridge. The world is being fed, the night is moving, and you are ready to rest. As you cross the narrow stone bridge, leaving the low, rhythmic thrum of the watermill behind you, take a long, slow breath of the midnight air. Notice how the scent of damp earth and rushing water begins to fade, replaced by a subtle, complex perfume that drifts from a small, timbered house nestled against the town's apothecary garden. Have you ever felt the profound peace that comes from being surrounded by the quiet, healing essence of the earth? As you exhale, imagine your heart rate slowing down to match the deep, patient pulse of the ancient trees. Notice the heavy, warm relaxation spreading through your palms and your fingers, as if you were holding a cup of warm, herbal tea, letting the steam rise to soften your face. You are moving into a sanctuary of glass, wood, and botanical wisdom, a place where the chaotic energies of the world are filtered through the soothing lens of nature's own remedies. The atmosphere inside the apothecary's workroom is a masterclass in organized stillness. The room is lined from floor to ceiling with shelves of dark, polished oak, each one holding a fleet of ceramic jars and hand-blown glass vials that catch the moonlight in 1,000 tiny liquid glimmers. The air here is a thick, aromatic tapestry. The top notes are the sharp, clean scent of dried peppermint and the citrusy whisper of lemon balm, while the deeper bass notes are the earthy, musk-like fragrance of valerian root and the sweet, honeyed warmth of beeswax. On the central workbench, a large glass alembic, a traditional medieval distillation vessel with a long, downward-sloping neck, sits in a nest of cool sand. It is a beautiful, transparent curve of history, used to capture the essential spirits of flowers. The walls are adorned with bundles of drying herbs hanging from the rafters. Silverleaf sage, dark sprigs of rosemary, and clusters of chamomile that look like tiny fallen stars in the gloom. The room is held in a state of suspended animation, a place where time is measured not by the ticking of a clock, but by the slow gravitational descent of a single drop of rosewater. In the center of this fragrant chamber, a young assistant is engaged in the most hypnotic and rhythmic task of the apothecary's night. He is preparing a spongia somnifera, or a sleeping sponge, a common medieval anesthetic made from a blend of opium, hemlock, and mandrake, intended to bring a deep, painless rest to those in need. He sits on a low wooden stool, a massive stone mortar carved from a single block of gray granite resting between his knees. He holds a heavy pestle made of smooth green marble, and his movements are a slow, circular dance of preparation. Listen to the steady, rhythmic crush, swirl, tap, crush, swirl, tap of the stone pestle against the mortar. The crush is a deep, muffled crunch as he breaks the dried poppy heads. The swirl is a low, gritty shush as he grinds them into a fine, silken powder. And the tap is a light, musical click as he knocks the side of the mortar to clear the stone. The assistant moves with a repetitive, mindless grace, his upper body swaying slightly with each rotation of the pestle. This work is a silent meditation, a task that has remained unchanged since the days of the ancient Greeks and was meticulously recorded in the great medieval herbals, illuminated manuscripts that served as the primary medical encyclopedias of the age. You watch as he adds a small amount of honey to the mixture, a natural preservative that binds the powders into a dark, fragrant paste. The crush, swirl, tap, continues, a grounding auditory anchor that pulls your focus away from the world outside and into the center of the granite bowl. The sound is so consistent, so reliable, that it becomes a heartbeat for the room, a rhythmic lullaby of stone on stone. You find your own breathing falling into a perfect, effortless cycle, inhaling as the pestle swirls, exhaling as it taps, letting the repetition wash away any remaining thoughts of the day, leaving behind only the scent of the poppy and the coolness of the marble. As the mixture reaches its final velvety consistency, the assistant slows his pace, the crush becoming a soft, final sigh of completion. He uses a small wooden spatula to scrape the paste into a shallow ceramic dish, the scrape of the wood against the stone, a satisfying domestic conclusion to the labor. He then reaches for a piece of fine linen to cover the dish, sealing it with a technique known as luting, where a paste made of flour and clay is applied to the rim to create an airtight seal. This historical detail, the careful preservation of the medicine's potency, speaks of a world that valued patience and the slow, deliberate work of the hands. The task is finished, the healing draught is prepared, and the workroom returns to its state of absolute aromatic quiet. The assistant stands up slowly, his shadow stretching long and soft across the floor, and moves toward the back of the shop, his departure as quiet as the scent of the herbs he leaves behind. The stillness that remains in the apothecary is even deeper than before, a heavy, fragrant quiet that seems to rise from the jars and wrap itself around your spirit. The moonlight continues to play across the glass phials, creating a shifting map of amber and emerald light that invites your mind to drift and wander. Feel the tension in your legs and hips completely dissolve, as if you were becoming a part of the oak shelves themselves, steady, quiet, and full of history. The workroom is a sanctuary of nature's peace, a place where the world's hurts are tended to by the slow, rhythmic care of the night. Every breath you take now is a slow, easy wave that carries you further away from the waking world and closer to the soft, blurred edges of a deep, dreamless sleep. The alembic is still, the mortar is resting, and you are ready to surrender to the velvet dark that waits in the garden beyond. Step softly away from the fragrant shadows of the apothecary's workroom, letting the cool night air cleanse your palate of the heavy, medicinal herbs. Take a slow, luxurious breath in. And as you let it out in a long, silent sigh, feel a gentle, melting sensation begin to spread outward from the very center of your chest. We are drifting now down a quiet, narrow alleyway where the cobblestones are worn smooth by the passage of countless feet, drawn by a new scent that is incredibly comforting, the rich, golden aroma of warm beeswax. Allow your shoulders to drop heavily away from your ears, releasing any lingering tightness, as if a thick, heavy blanket of soft wool has just been draped across your back. We are entering the silent, sweet-smelling domain of the town's chandler, a place where the chaotic energies of the day are smoothed and sealed into perfect, glowing stillness. The chandlery, even in the deep middle of the night, holds onto a profound, residual warmth that wraps around you like a velvet cloak. The air inside this low-ceilinged workshop is thick, lazy, and infused with the deeply soothing fragrance of melted honeycombs and the faint, toasted scent of cotton. This is not the sharp, bright light of day, but a muted, amber sanctuary where shadows pool in the corners like dark syrup. Wooden racks, polished to a dull, beautiful shine by years of waxy hands, line the walls, draped with hundreds of pale, slender tapers that hang in perfect, silent rows. The temperature here is wonderfully even, a soft, radiating heat that comes from a massive copper cauldron resting over a carefully banked fire of gray ashes and a few solitary glowing embers. You can almost feel this warmth seeping into the stones beneath your feet, radiating upward to soothe tired muscles and quiet the wandering mind. The moonlight struggles to penetrate the small oiled parchment windows, casting a hazy, golden-gray luminescence that makes the room look as though it were entirely submerged in a jar of liquid honey. Everywhere you look in this quiet room, there is evidence of slow, deliberate craft. The heavy oak tables are thick and sturdy, their surfaces coated in a smooth, translucent layer of hardened wax that feels soft and forgiving to the touch. In the medieval era, a strict division existed within this trade. The wax chandlers, who worked with the sweet-smelling product of the woven straw beehives known as skeps, served the churches and the wealthy, while the tallow chandlers worked with animal fats. Here in the wax chandler's shop, the air is purely sweet, a botanical echo of summer meadows preserved for the darkest nights of winter. This room is a cocoon of safety, a place dedicated entirely to the gentle pushing back of the dark, yet tonight, it has surrendered completely to the peace of the midnight hour. In the center of this golden haze, an elderly artisan is engaged in the slow, rhythmic creation of the town's finest light. He is practicing the ancient art of dipping, a historical method where long, carefully braided cotton wicks are repeatedly submerged into a vat of liquid wax to slowly build up a candle, layer by microscopic layer. He holds a wooden frame called a dipping rod, from which several wicks dangle like pale, thirsty strings. He moves with a hypnotic, swaying grace, a physical dance born of decades of endless repetition. Listen to the soft, rhythmic swoosh, drip, sigh, swoosh, drip, sigh, as the wicks are lowered into the warm wax and then lifted slowly into the ambient air. The swoosh is the gentle parting of the heavy liquid. The drip is the musical patter of excess wax falling back into the copper vat, and the sigh is the sound of his own slow, steady breathing as he waits for the delicate layer to cool. He lowers the wooden rod. Swoosh. The wicks drink in the liquid gold. He lifts it smoothly, holding it aloft. Drip, drip. He pauses, utterly motionless. Sigh. The rhythm is an auditory bomb, a slow, viscous pendulum that swings back and forth, coaxing your brainwaves into a state of profound, rolling calm. You watch as the translucent liquid clings to the wicks, cooling almost instantly in the cooler air of the room, turning from clear, shimmering gold to a soft, opaque cream. The artisan's face is a mask of absolute tranquility, his eyes half closed, his hands knowing the weight and the exact temperature of the wax entirely by instinct. He steps slowly to a large wooden drying frame known as a hearse, carefully hanging the rod to let the tapers harden further, and takes up another rod, beginning the cycle anew. Swoosh. Drip. Suck. There is absolutely no rush, no pressure to finish, no urgency to the night. The wax itself dictates the pace, demanding immense patience, forcing the world to slow down to the speed of a cooling drop. You find your own heart rate effortlessly sinking with the gentle dip and lift of his arms, your thoughts becoming coated in the same smooth, heavy layers of peace. Gradually, the artisan's movements begin to slow, a subtle deceleration that signals the end of his quiet nocturnal labor. The final dipping rod is hung upon the wooden hearse, joining the silent ranks of newly formed tapers that look like smooth ivory icicles suspended in the gloom. The swoosh of the liquid wax ceases, leaving behind a silence so thick, so heavy, it feels as though you could reach out and rest your hands upon it. He takes a heavy wooden lid and slides it carefully over the lip of the copper vat. The muted thud seals away the warm liquid, trapping the heat and signaling the absolute completion of the night's work. The room settles into a state of unmoving, monumental stillness. The scent of the beeswax seems to concentrate in the quiet, a rich, floral sweetness that acts as a natural, invisible sedative, wrapping your senses in a deeply comforting embrace. The artisan takes a small piece of rough, unbleached linen and begins to slowly wipe his hands, his head bowed, his posture reflecting the deep, satisfying exhaustion of a craftsman who has given his all to his quiet trade. The amber light of the single ember in the hearth begins to fade, its glow shrinking, dimming the edges of the room and bringing the velvet darkness ever closer. The tapers on the racks stand like silent, sleeping guardians, holding the potential for light, but perfectly content for now to simply rest in the cool, quiet air. You feel a deep, unshakable sense of safety in this room, knowing that the tools of illumination have been gently laid down, and there is absolutely nothing left for you to do but surrender entirely to the beautiful, softening shadows. The weight of the warm, waxy air is now a soothing physical pressure across your entire body, gently holding you exactly where you are. Your limbs feel gloriously heavy, sinking deeper and deeper into the soft, supporting dark, while your mind drifts like a single weightless spark in the night sky. The rhythmic swoosh. Drip of the wax remains only as a fading, hypnotic echo in your memory, lulling you further down into tranquility. Every breath you take is a slow, sweet surrender, a letting go of all the hours that have passed. The chandlery is perfectly still, the wax has cooled to a smooth finish, and you are ready to drift out into the quiet, starlit lane, moving deeper into the dreaming heart of the step softly out of the golden, honeyed warmth of the chandlery, letting the cool, quiet air of the narrow lane wash over you. Take a slow, deep breath, feeling the crispness of the night cleanse your mind, and as you exhale, imagine your consciousness drifting further down the winding, cobblestone path. We are moving toward the Weaver's Quarter, a part of town where the half-timbered houses lean close together, their overhanging upper stories creating a tunnel of deep, protective shadow. Allow the muscles in your forehead and around your eyes to completely smooth out, letting go of any tight, concentrated expressions, just as a master craftsman gently loosens the tension on a finished piece of cloth. You are walking into a space where the chaotic, tangled threads of the day are drawn together, organized, and woven into a beautiful, seamless rest. The atmosphere inside the master weaver's workshop is a masterpiece of muffled, insulated quiet. The room, situated on the upper floor of a heavy oak-framed house, is filled from floor to ceiling with wooden bobbins, skeins of dyed yarn, and thick bales of carded wool. These materials act as a natural heavy dampener, swallowing the echoes of the outside world and creating an acoustic environment that is incredibly soft and hushed. The scent here is warm and profoundly domestic. The lanolin-rich aroma of raw fleece, the dry, dusty smell of seasoned timber, and the faint, earthy trace of the sizing paste used to strengthen the warp threads. In the center of the room stands the great horizontal loom, a massive, complex architecture of beams, harnesses, and treadles. This type of loom was the beating, industrial heart of the medieval textile trade, allowing for the creation of wide, heavy broadcloth that could keep the winter at bay. Tonight, however, in the silver wash of the moonlight filtering through the lattice window, it looks like a sleeping wooden giant. Seated before this great machine is a lone journeyman, performing the slow, rhythmic completion of a long day's labor. He is weaving a heavy length of winter wool, and his movements are a mesmerizing, full-body dance of coordination and grace. He presses down on a wooden foot treadle to separate the threads, creating the opening known as the shed, and then sends the smooth, boat-shaped shuttle gliding across the width of the fabric. Listen to the slow, rhythmic clack. Thump, clack, thump of the loom in motion. The clack is the sound of the wooden heddles shifting up and down. The is the soft, continuous whisper of the fruitwood shuttle sliding through the taut woolen threads, and the thump is the heavy, satisfying strike of the beater bar packing the new weft securely into place. The journeyman moves with a hypnotic, swaying cadence. His hands and feet know the pattern so intimately that the work requires no conscious thought, only the steady, mindless repetition of muscle memory. Clack. Thump. He rocks slightly forward with the beater, then settles back as his foot shifts to the next treadle. Clack. Thump. It is a deeply grounding auditory loop, a mechanical lullaby that speaks of creation, order, and warmth. You watch as the fabric grows by fractions of an inch, a tight, perfect interlacing of threads that traps the warmth of the room within its geometric perfection. The air is filled with microscopic motes of wool dust that catch the dim moonlight, drifting like a slow-motion snowstorm before settling onto the wide oak floorboards. You find your own breathing falling into a perfect, effortless cycle, inhaling on the clack and exhaling deeply on the heavy thump of the beater, letting the repetition weave a thick, heavy blanket of peace over your wandering mind. Gradually, the journeyman's movements begin to slow, the rhythm widening, the pauses between each throw of the shuttle growing longer. He has reached the end of the required measure. He catches the wooden shuttle in his palm for the last time, silencing entirely, and gently sets it to rest in its carved wooden trough. He steps off the treadles, the clack fading away, and reaches out to loosen the large wooden ratchets that hold the fabric taut. There is a deep, resonant creak of the heavy oak beams relaxing, a sound that perfectly mirrors the release of tension in your own spine. The loom settles into a state of absolute, unmoving stillness. He takes a large, plain linen sheet and drapes it carefully over the finished cloth to protect it from the night dust. The task is finished, the fabric is secure, and the workshop returns to its profound, insulated quiet. The journeyman turns and walks silently toward the stairs, his work complete, leaving the loom to dream in the moonlight. The stillness that remains in the workshop is even deeper than before, a heavy, textural quiet that seems to wrap itself around your spirit like the very wool that was just woven. The moonlight continues to play across the wooden frame of the loom, creating a shifting map of light and shadow that invites your mind to drift and wander. Feel the tension in your arms and shoulders completely dissolve, as if the tight threads holding you upright have been gently unspooled and laid to rest. The workshop is a sanctuary of warmth and completion, a place where the world's loose ends have been neatly tied off for the night. Every breath you take now is a slow, easy wave that carries you further away from the waking world and closer to the soft, blurred edges of a deep, dreamless sleep. The shuttle is still, the threads are resting, and you are ready to surrender to the velvet dark that waits beyond the window pane. Take a long, slow breath in, feeling the pure, cool night mist fill your lungs as you leave the rhythmic thrum of the weaver's looms behind. As you exhale, imagine your consciousness drifting toward the ancient stone walls of the abbey, nestled on the very edge of the town. Can you feel the shift in the space around you? The busy, domestic energy of the weaver's quarter gives way to a vast, profound stillness where time itself seems to hold its breath. Allow your shoulders to drop completely, releasing every last ounce of tension, as if the heavy oak doors of the monastery have just closed behind you, sealing out the noise of the world. You are walking down a long, vaulted stone cloister, where the moonlight pours through arched windows to create silver ribbons across the cool, flagstone floor. The atmosphere within the monastery is a masterpiece of sacred tranquility. The scent here is clean and ethereal, a blend of damp limestone, the faint ghost of beeswax from extinguished tapers, and the gentle fragrance of dried lavender hanging in the wooden rafters. Every footstep is cushioned by an absolute silence, a quiet that isn't empty, but feels filled with a sense of protection. At the center of the cloister lies the garth, a small, square garden where medicinal herbs sleep under a veil of frost. The carved stone pillars surrounding the garden stand like silent guardians of the night's repose. You feel your body becoming weightless, like a single mote of dust suspended in a moonbeam, untethered from the demands of the day. At the far end of the corridor, near the entrance to the scriptorium, a young monk is performing the final task of his nightly vigil. He does not pray with words, but with his hands and a focused, quiet devotion. He is preparing the wicks for the dawn service lamps. He sits upon a simple wooden bench, his slender but steady hands smoothing out strands of pure white cotton. Listen to the soft, rhythmic swish. Smooth click as he prepares each wick. The swish is the sound of the cotton pulling through a block of soft wax. The smooth is the sound of his fingers straightening the strand, and the click is the tiny wooden sound of the wick meeting the tray. The monk moves with a deliberate, unhurried grace, his eyes half closed as if in a waking dream. Swish, smooth, click. This rhythm is a tactile lullaby, a repeating loop that coaxes your mind away from any lingering thoughts. You watch his hands move under the silver light, each motion filled with reverence and precision. There is no rush, no pressure, only the total presence of the moment. You find your own breathing synchronizing with his work, inhaling as he waxes the thread, and exhaling a long, slow sigh as he lays it down. This repetition creates a safe boundary, wrapping your spirit in a cocoon of peace that makes all worries vanish like mist. As the final wick is finished, the monk pauses, his hands resting quietly on his knees. He bows his head slightly, a gesture of completion and quiet contentment. The cloister feels even more silent now, a heavy velvety quiet that is soft to the touch. He stands up slowly, walking with ghost-like steps toward his small cell, leaving the tray of wicks to rest in the moonlight. His departure does not break the peace. Rather, it confirms that the work of the day is truly done, and it is time for rest. You feel a deep connection to this space, where everything is designed to lead the soul towards sleep. Feel the heavy, warm relaxation spreading through your entire body, from the crown of your head to the tips of your toes, as if you were sinking into a soft bed in a warm, stone-walled chamber. Your eyelids are heavy and every breath is becoming slower and deeper. The smooth rhythm of the monk's hands remains in your mind as a healing melody, carrying you further into the world of dreams. The corridor is empty, the herb garden is still, and you are ready to let go completely. The world outside has faded away, leaving only the silence of the abbey and the deep sleep that awaits you. Take a slow, deep breath, feeling the crisp purity of the night mist as you leave the stone cloisters of the abbey behind. As you exhale, imagine your consciousness drifting toward the home of a master scribe, nestled quietly against the shadow of the great bell tower. There is a specific kind of stillness here, a silence that holds the weight of wisdom and the patience of 1,000 vellum pages. Feel the heavy, warm relaxation spreading from your hips down through your legs, as if you were sinking into a sturdy oak chair lined with soft, thick sheepskin, every ounce of gravity's pressure simply melting away. You are entering a small scriptorium where the scent of iron gall ink and old leather creates a sanctuary of ancient, reassuring peace. The atmosphere in this room is a perfect balance of deep focus and absolute calm. The walls are lined with heavy oak shelves, housing rolls of parchment and precious leather-bound volumes. The aroma is distinct and earthy, the sharp tang of the ink, the faint sweetness of pine resin, and the dry, clean scent of cured sheepskin. On the large slanted desk, a few beeswax candles have just been snuffed out, leaving thin white ribbons of smoke to curl lazily in the moonlight. High above, the stained glass windows filter the silver light into ethereal patterns, transforming the room into a space where the outside world no longer exists. Beside the oak desk, an elderly scribe is performing his final rhythmic ritual to prepare for the morning's light. He is not writing tonight, for his eyes are tired after a long day. Instead, he is ruling a fresh sheet of vellum. He holds a stylus of pure lead and a long, smooth oaken ruler. Listen to the steady rhythmic scuff. Glide. Pause as the ruler moves across the parchment. The scuff is the sound of the lead point finding its mark. The glide is the whisper of the metal tracing a line. And the pause is the soft breath he takes before moving the ruler to the next position. The scribe moves with absolute precision and an unchanging cadence. Each line appears faint yet perfectly straight, creating a flawless frame for the sacred text to come. Scuff. Glide. Pause. This rhythm acts as a visual spell, helping your mind discard the chaotic images of the day. You watch his wrinkled but steady hands move under the moonlight, feeling the devotion in every millimeter. There is no need for haste. Here time is measured in lines and pages. You feel your chest rise and fall slowly with each line he draws, inhaling as he sets the ruler, and exhaling a long, steady breath as the stylus whispers across the smooth surface. This repetition creates a field of absolute safety, drawing your soul into a state of drowsy, blissful peace. As the final line is completed, the scribe sets the ruler down with a soft, dry clack on the wooden table. He rolls the vellum, the parchment crinkling like dry leaves in a gentle breeze, a sound of total completion. He gathers his goose quills, placing them into a wooden tray, and stirs the small coals in the brazier one last time. The room now sinks into total darkness, save for the cool moonlight resting on the spines of the leather books. The presence of such order and careful preparation brings a profound sense of security. Everything is in its place and everything is ready for rest. Feel the heavy warmth and absolute safety enveloping your entire body, like a soft layer of ink covering the white pages of your mind. Your eyes are closed tight, and every breath now is a total surrender into the darkness. The glide of the lead point remains as a gentle echo in your thoughts, a reminder that the world is at peace. The scriptorium is empty, the parchment is still, and you are ready to step into a deep, dreamless sleep. The story has reached its final line for today, and you are the one holding the silence. As you step away from the scribe's quiet chamber, the silence of the night seems to deepen even further, becoming a thick, protective veil that separates you from the world of the living. Take a slow, intentional breath, and as you exhale, imagine your consciousness drifting toward the massive, arched silhouette of the town's parish church. This is the spiritual anchor of the community, a fortress of faith and stone that has absorbed the prayers and sighs of generations. Notice the sensation of your chest opening and relaxing, your breath becoming as effortless and quiet as the air within the nave. You are entering a space where the ceiling is so high it seems to touch the stars, and the stone walls are so thick they hold the coolness of the earth itself, even in the height of summer. The atmosphere inside the church is one of monumental, echoing peace. The air is cool and still, carrying a complex, ancient fragrance, the dry, spicy scent of frankincense and myrrh that has permeated the very stones over centuries, the sweet, earthy smell of old oak pews, and the faint, metallic tang of cold iron. The floor is a sea of smooth, gray flagstones, worn into gentle hollows by the feet of thousands of pilgrims. High above, the great stone pillars rise like the trunks of giant trees, disappearing into the dark, vaulted ribs of the ceiling. The only light comes from the moon, which strikes the stained glass of the great east window, casting long ethereal ghosts of ruby, sapphire, and emerald across the floor. It is a world of shadows and light, a sanctuary where every worry of the day is rendered insignificant by the sheer scale of the silence. In the center of the chancel, near the high altar, the elderly sexton is performing the final, most reverent duty of the night. He is not cleaning for show, but for the quiet dignity of the space. He stands before the great brass lectern, a magnificent eagle with outstretched wings that holds the heavy, leather-bound Bible. He holds a soft piece of unbleached linen, and his movements are a slow, circular meditation. Listen to the rhythmic, metallic shush. Glide. Sure, as the cloth moves over the polished brass. The shush is the sound of the cloth meeting the metal. The glide is the long, smooth stroke across the eagle's wings. And the sure is the soft, vibrating note that resonates through the hollow brass as he polishes the base. The sexton moves with a slow, swaying grace, his body leaning into the rhythm of the work. He is a man who has lived his entire life in the shadow of this steeple, and his movements are as steady and predictable as the seasons. Shush. Glide. Sure. There is a profound sense of continuity in this task. The brass has been polished in exactly this way for hundreds of years, and it will be polished for hundreds more. You watch as the moonlight catches the gleam of the metal, making the eagle look as though it were about to take flight into the dark rafters. You find your own pulse slowing to match the shush of the cloth, each stroke acting as a gentle brush that clears your mind of any remaining thoughts. The repetition is hypnotic, a tactile lullaby of metal and fiber that anchors you to the solid, unchanging heart of the town. As the brass reaches a deep, mirror-like glow, the sexton slows his pace, the shush becoming a soft, final whisper of completion. He folds his cloth with practiced ease and places it into a wooden box, the lid closing with a muted thud that echoes softly through the empty nave. He turns and walks toward the side door, his footsteps on the stone floor a fading rhythm of leather on limestone. As he pulls the heavy oak door shut, the iron bolt slides home with a definitive musical clink. The church is now perfectly sealed, a stone cocoon of absolute, undisturbed quiet. The silence that remains is not empty. It is a heavy liquid peace that seems to flow out from the altar and fill every corner of the space, wrapping itself around your spirit like a shroud of soft silk. Feel the cool, supportive weight of your own body, imagining you are resting on a bed as solid and enduring as the church's foundations. Your limbs feel long and heavy, sinking into the stillness as if you were part of the very architecture of the night. The rhythmic shush of the sexton's cloth remains as a fading vibration in your memory, a steady, metallic heartbeat that continues to ground you in this moment of total sanctuary. Every breath you take is now a slow, effortless ripple, a surrender to the velvet darkness that fills the high vaults of the ceiling. The eagle is bright, the doors are barred, and you are ready to drift away from the stone walls and toward the final, softest edge of the town, where the world of man ends and the world of dreams begins. The night is holy, the air is still, and you are ready to rest. As you emerge from the heavy, vaulted silence of the parish church, take a final, deep breath of the cool midnight air. The scent of ancient stone and incense lingers for a moment before being swept away by the fresh, damp perfume of the river valley. We are moving now toward the very edge of the town, where the cobblestone streets give way to the soft, silvered grass of the meadows. Ahead of you lies the old bridge, a low, sturdy arch of weathered granite that spans the slow-moving river. Notice the sensation of your feet becoming light and effortless, as if the ground itself were rising up to meet you with every step. You are at the threshold, the physical boundary between the structured world of the town and the wild, unmapped territory of the dreamscape. The atmosphere at the river's edge is a liquid tapestry of silver and indigo. The air is slightly heavier here, saturated with the cool moisture of the flowing water and the sweet green scent of crushed river sedge and wild mint. The bridge itself is a relic of an even older time, its stones covered in a velvet mantle of moss and pale green lichen that glows softly under the moon's gaze. Below, the river moves with a deceptive, powerful stillness, its surface a mirror of polished obsidian that breaks only when it hits the starlings, the pointed wooden and stone foundations of the bridge piers. The sound here is a deep, resonant hum, a watery bass note that vibrates through the soles of your feet and anchors you to the rhythmic heart of the earth. Beside the bridge's toll gate, a lone bridge keeper is performing the final, most rhythmic act of the medieval night. He is securing the heavy iron chain that spans the river, a barrier designed to prevent unauthorized boats from passing through the town's waters under the cover of darkness. He stands on a small wooden platform, his hands gripped around a massive iron windlass. Listen to the slow, heavy clink, clink, rasp of the iron chain as it is drawn taut through the stone rings. The clink is the sound of the heavy links meeting the iron drum. The rasp is the sound of the chain sliding over the wet granite of the pier, and the pause is the sound of the keeper's deep, steady exhale as he leans into the weight. The bridge keeper moves with a slow, mechanical precision, his body swaying in time with the rotation of the iron handle. Click, rasp, click, rasp. It is a sound of immense weight and absolute finality. With every turn of the windlass, the town is being sealed, its watery gate locked against the world. You watch as the chain rises out of the black water, dripping with silver droplets that catch the moonlight before falling back into the depths with a soft, musical plip, plop. This repetitive motion is a visual and auditory anchor, a rhythmic counting down that signals the absolute end of the waking day. You find your own breathing falling into a perfect, effortless cycle, inhaling as the chain rises and exhaling a long, slow sigh as the weight settles into the next notch of the iron gear. As the chain reaches its maximum tension, the keeper drops a heavy iron pin into the mechanism. The sound is a sharp, definitive tang that resonates through the stones of the bridge and fades slowly into the mist. The river is now barred, the town is secure, and the work of man is officially over. The keeper takes a small oil lantern and blows it out, the whiff of the flame vanishing into a tiny trail of gray smoke that smells of toasted wick and whale oil. He turns and walks toward his small stone hut, his footsteps on the bridge making a soft, hollow rhythm that gradually merges with the sound of the rushing water. His departure leaves the bridge in a state of pristine, elemental solitude, a place where only the moon and the river remain awake. Feel the heavy, cool relaxation flowing through your entire body, like the slow-moving river passing beneath the bridge. Your limbs feel as steady and enduring as the granite arches, while your spirit is as fluid and free as the water itself. The clink of the iron chain remains in your mind as a fading, metallic heartbeat, a steady vibration that continues to lull you further into the dark. Every breath you take is now a slow, effortless wave, carrying you across the bridge and into the soft, blurred meadows of sleep. The gate is locked, the chain is taut, and you are ready to surrender to the velvet darkness that waits on the other side of the water. The town is behind you, the dreams are before you, and you are finally perfectly at rest. The town is silent, the gates are barred, and the river carries the last echoes of the day away into the mist. You have traveled through every corner of this medieval world, and it is now prepared for your rest. As you step off the last granite stone of the old bridge, leaving the metallic clink of the river chain behind, take a slow, deep breath of the vast, open air. Notice how the ground beneath your feet has changed. The hard, unyielding cobbles of the town have surrendered to the soft, springy embrace of the riverside meadow. The earth here feels alive and cushioning, a carpet of wild clover and damp moss that absorbs the very weight of your existence. Allow your ankles and feet to completely relax, feeling them sink slightly into the cool, dark soil, as if the earth itself were welcoming you home. You are no longer within the walls of men. You are in the quiet, breathing heart of the natural world, where the only architecture is the reach of the willow branches and the only law is the slow, seasonal pulse of the forest. The atmosphere here is one of profound, ancient softness. The scent of the town, the wood smoke, the wax, the stone, has faded into a distant memory, replaced by the cool, silver perfume of the night-blooming jasmine, the damp, peaty aroma of the riverbank, and the faint, sweet scent of a wood fire burning low in the distance. The meadows stretch out before you like a sea of dark velvet, punctuated only by the occasional silhouette of a solitary oak tree. High above, the sky is an infinite dome of indigo, crowded with stars that look like tiny, flickering lanterns suspended in a great, silent hall. There is no wind here, only a gentle rhythmic movement of the air that feels like a cooling hand against your brow. You are standing at the edge of the great forest, a place of deep shadows and even deeper peace, where the trees stand in eternal, unmoving meditation. Near the edge of the woods, where the meadow meets the first line of ancient beeches, a lone shepherd is performing the final, most peaceful ritual of the night. He is not watching for wolves. The night is too still, the moon too bright for danger. Instead, he is simply ensuring the absolute comfort of his flock before he, too, surrenders to sleep. He sits on a low mound of soft earth, his heavy woolen cloak draped around him like a portable sanctuary. Beside him, his sheep have gathered in a tight, warm circle, a sea of pale, fluffy wool that rises and falls with a single collective breath. Listen to the slow, rhythmic rustle, click, sigh, of the flock settling for the night. The rustle is the sound of wool brushing against wool. The clink is the tiny musical note of a single brass bell as a ewe adjusts her head, and the sigh is the long, vibrating exhale of an animal finding its perfect place in the grass. The shepherd moves with a slow, swaying grace, his hands resting on the smooth, polished wood of his crook. He is not working, he is participating in the stillness. He reaches out and gently adjusts the edge of his cloak, the movement as slow and deliberate as the drifting of a cloud. Rustle, click, sigh. It is a sound of absolute trust and communal peace. There is no hierarchy here, no urgency, no unfinished business. The sheep are safe, the shepherd is weary, and the night is vast. You watch as the low embers of his small fire pulse with a soft orange glow, the light shrinking and expanding like a tiny, fiery lung. You find your own heart rate effortlessly syncing with the collective breathing of the flock, inhaling the scent of the wild grass, and exhaling a long, effortless sigh that carries away the very last of your conscious thoughts. As the final sheep settles and the brass bell falls silent, the shepherd leans back against the trunk of a great beech tree. The rustle fades into a soft, textural silence that is as thick and warm as the wool itself. He pulls his hood low over his eyes, his silhouette merging with the dark bark of the tree until he becomes a part of the landscape. The fire has faded to a single glowing spark, a tiny red star resting on the forest floor. The meadow is perfectly still, the river is a distant hum, and the town is a world away, a cluster of silent stones lost in the mist. You are now part of this great, breathing tapestry of the night, a single thread woven into the velvet dark. There is absolutely nothing left for you to see, nothing left for you to do, and nothing left for you to be. Feel the heavy rhythmic warmth of the earth rising up to meet you, wrapping around your limbs and your spirit with a love that is as old as the stars. Your body feels as vast and peaceful as the meadow, while your mind is as clear and quiet as the midnight sky. The rhythmic sigh of the sheep remains as a fading ethereal echo in your memory, a natural lullaby that carries you over the final threshold. Every breath you take is now a slow, effortless surrender to the gravity of the dreamscape. The bridge is crossed, the flock is still, and you are finally, perfectly, and eternally at rest. The world is asleep, the night is complete, and you are ready to vanish into the deep, beautiful dark. The journey is complete. The town, the river, and the meadows have all found their peace, and now it is your turn.